Top 10 most insane punishments. Number 10. Keelhauling. The term comes from the Dutch word keelhaulen, meaning to drag along the keel, which is precisely what this torture method did. The sailor was stripped, tied, and suspended by a rope from the ship's mast, with weights or chains attached to their legs. The rope was looped beneath the ship, and once the sailor was released, they were dragged under the keel. The fatality rate was practically 100%. If the person did not drown, they suffered severe head trauma from repeatedly smacking against the keel, as well as deep lacerations from the barnacles and other aquatic growth present on the hull. If they survived and were hauled back on board, death would most likely still result from wound infections. Number 9. Drawing and quartering. The prisoner is dragged behind a horse to the execution site, battered and bloodied, where he's hanged until near death, gasping for breath. But the horror has only begun. Next, he's laid out and gruesomely disemboweled, organs removed while still alive. Finally, the executioner beheads him, and his body is quartered, cut into 4 parts. Each grisly piece is sent to different corners of the kingdom as a stark warning of the price of treason. This was not just an execution. It was a public spectacle of terror, designed to instill fear and maintain order in the harshest way possible. Number 8. Rats. One or multiple rats would be placed inside a small cage positioned against the victim's abdomen. The cage was heated from the outside, either by a candle, flaming stick, or hot coals, causing the rat to become agitated. So how could it escape? By clawing its way into the only available soft surface, human skin. Quite quickly, the rat would gnaw its way into the victim's bowels, eliciting unbearable agony in the process. This technique effectively got information out of prisoners and played on their psyches, adding a psychological element to the torture. Number 7. Roman candle. Victims were tied and nailed to tall stakes. Then, pitch, oil, wax, and other flammable liquid was poured over them before they were set alight. The fire started at the feet to prolong their suffering. Infamously brutal Roman Emperor Nero was a big fan of this method, often burning Christians this way at his lavish parties and using the burning victims as a source of light. Number 6. The rack. The rack was a long table with axles and levers at both ends. The victim was forced to lay down, then tied with ropes or chains which wound over the axles. One or several torturers would then slowly push the levers, causing the axles to rotate and produce tension in the chains. This caused the straps to dig into the prisoner's skin and gradually stretch their body outwards. The internal physical turmoil that one would have suffered is hard to swallow. Vertebrae expanded, joints, muscles, and tendons gave way, posture changed. The rib cage pressurized the lungs, bones shattered, nerve endings became exposed. The pain would be near unimaginable. As a bonus for the especially tough, they were placed on spiked axles that stripped their back of its flesh. Number 5. The boats. In ancient Persia, the boats, also known as scaphism, involved the victim being stripped naked, then bound between 2 wooden boats, with only their head, hands, and feet exposed. Honey and milk are poured over them, attracting swarms of insects. Under the blazing sun, the victim is force-fed more honey and milk, ensuring a slow, agonizing death by dehydration, starvation, and infection. Insects burrow into every orifice, feasting on the flesh. Days turn into weeks as the victim endures unbearable pain, their body rotting alive. Scaphism was designed to inflict the maximum suffering, a chilling reminder of human cruelty. This horrifying method of execution is a stark testament to the dark depths of ancient punishments. Number 4. The Brazen Bull. Invented by a sadistic artist named Perillos for the tyrant Phalaris, this torture device was a hollow bronze bull gleaming in the sun. Victims were locked inside, unable to move. A fire was lit beneath the bull, turning it into a deadly oven. As the victims screamed in agony, their cries were transformed into eerie, bull-like sounds through a series of tubes. But in a twist of poetic justice, Perillos himself became the bull's first victim. Phalaris, impressed by the device's cruelty, ordered its creator to demonstrate it, and then had him locked inside. The tyrant and his court watched, entertained by the grotesque spectacle. The Brazen Bull stands as a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty and the terrifying lengths to which rulers would go to instill fear. Number 3. Crucifixion. Victims were nailed or tied to a wooden cross, left to hang under the scorching sun. Every breath was a battle, their weight pulling against the nails. As dehydration and shock set in, they endured agonizing pain that could last for days. The crowd watched in morbid fascination as the condemned's life ebbed away, minute by torturous minute. This brutal method of execution wasn't just about death. It was about inflicting maximum suffering, a harrowing spectacle meant to serve as a grim deterrent. The slow, public nature of crucifixion made it one of the most feared and horrific punishments in history. Number 2, flaying. Victims were stripped of their skin while still alive, enduring unimaginable pain. This brutal method was often reserved for the worst criminals or those who defied powerful rulers. The executioner, skilled in prolonging agony, would carefully peel back the skin, starting from the limbs and moving inward, exposing raw flesh and nerves. As the victim screamed in agony, their tormentors watched, ensuring the punishment was a horrifying spectacle. The excruciating process could last hours, even days, leaving onlookers horrified and instilling fear throughout the land. Flaying stands as a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty, making it one of the most feared and detested forms of execution in ancient times. Number 1, impalement. Famously used by Vlad the Impaler, the inspiration for Count Dracula, this process was a long, horrifically drawn-out ordeal. Traditionally, the stake would be partially sharpened and planted point up in the ground. The victim would then be placed over the spike as it was inserted partway into the rectum or vagina. As their own body weight dragged them further onto the pole, the semi-greased wooden stake would force its way up through their body, piercing organs with an agonizing slowness as it eventually penetrated the entire torso, finally tearing an exit wound through the skin of the shoulder, neck, or throat. According to some accounts, it could take the victim, exposed, bleeding, and writhing in tormented agony, as long as 8 whole days to die. Subscribe for more insane facts and stories.